says webinar is live.
And it's recording too, so.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, people are flowing in. Interesting. Usually there's like a waiting room button. Can make other small chit chat as they come in.
Yeah. So where are you from, Rachel? You're out of state?
Yeah, I'm from Houston, Texas.
Okay. And you, Jillian?
I'm from New Jersey, but I live in North Carolina now.
Ooh, where in North Carolina?
I moved to Chapel Hill.
Okay, yeah. My grandparents live in Asheville, so, but I'm from Georgia, so.
Caroline, are you going to the workshop after this?
Yeah. I wasn't able to make the one on Monday night because I have class right after till 6:20, so I wasn't able to make it. Are you going to this one?
Yeah, I had a meeting last time also.
Yeah. What movies? What topic? I don't think we've been in a room before or like a meeting together.
Yeah, mine's on looking at the idea of Korean reunification through the perception of different age ranges in Korea, based on both like how, like if they were born yet during that conflict and how far they're removed from that time period wise. I think I definitely need to do more narrowing down of my topic.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
For those of you who are coming in now, thank you so much for joining us. We're just gonna wait 1 or 2 more minutes for everyone else to join. In the meantime, you can feel free to tune in on our side chit chat. Welcome everyone.
Yeah.
Did anyone go to the farmer's market this morning?
Oh, no, where is it now? Because I know
moved. I think it's next to Precarious. Like there's like a parking lot, and I think they moved it there. And apparently it's like super spread out and like not many people. So my roommate went this morning and liked it.
I like woke up and I couldn't remember if it was on Saturdays or Sundays, and I was like, okay, I'll just go next week. But yeah.
Yeah,
Is it weekly or bi-weekly?
It's weekly now that it's started back up. Yeah.
they have some really good meat there. Like, I'm just promoting. I don't know if people eat meat, but it's fairly cheap compared to Publix. So I was very surprised, but I was able to get steaks one time for fairly cheap.
Good to know.
I get for like
those who don't. I was just gonna say, for those who don't eat meat, they also have a lot of great vegetables and fruits that are super fresh.
Apparently they have really good kombucha. Ninja kombucha, I know is popular.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm guessing we should probably kick things off now.
All right.
So hello everyone. My name is Will. I'll be moderating this For Students by Students webinar panel for prospective students. I'm gonna have everyone go around and introduce themselves with their hometowns, their majors, and involvements on campus, and we'll start answering questions after that. Gonna say Caroline wants to go first, it seems like.
Okay, sure, I would love to. All right, so I'm Caroline. I am a junior from a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia called Marietta. I am a government and history double major, and on campus, I'm involved in Alpha Chi Omega, a social sorority, Canterbury, the Episcopal group on campus, and the Global Research Institute, where I serve as a research assistant. So, yeah.
You want to popcorn over to the next person?
Sure. Michaela.
I'm Michaela. I am from Chester, Virginia, which is like 30 minutes south of Richmond. And then I am a marketing major and maybe an art double major. We'll see. I kind of like, I don't know. I just decide when I decide. And then on campus, I'm involved in a social sorority. I'm a cycling instructor, and I am involved in student assembly.
And go ahead and call the next person for us, Michaela.
I always forget that. Okay, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a junior. I'm from Houston, Texas. Go Astros. I'm a psychology major and data science minor. And on campus, I'm involved in a tutoring organization called Pineapple Kids, and I'm on the peer advising executive board, which is like helping incoming students, and then part of this program, the Tribe Ambassadors. So I guess Jillian.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm a junior. I'm a chemistry major and a kinesiology minor. I'm on a pre-pharmacy track. I'm from a very small town in New Jersey, but I currently live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So big changes were made when I came to college, which is really fun. I am on the club lacrosse team. I'm involved in a social sorority. I'm part of this group, which is the Tribe Ambassadors, and I'm also an orientation aide.
So again, my name is Will. I'm a senior. I'm studying business analytics and international relations, and I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. I am part of the student assembly, a cappella group on campus, as well as a social fraternity. And I also am part of a service program called Branch Out, and have a couple of federal work study campus jobs at our career center and the media center. So with that all said, we're gonna collect questions from you guys in the Q&A option at the bottom bar. If you can't find that, please feel free to somehow let us know. And before we get some of those questions, we have some opening icebreaker questions to kick off with. But in the meantime, feel free to submit all those questions through that Q&A button at the bottom. So starting with Jillian, what was your favorite freshman memory?
Oh my gosh, it's like my favorite freshman memory. Probably I believe it was Wednesday night. A bunch of people from my freshman hall would all just like get together and have dinner, and it was really nice because especially like as the year went on and we all kind of had like busy schedules, it was kind of like our time to just like kind of just catch up and like get to see everyone again, just because we were all kind of like going in different directions with things we were getting involved in, and it was just really nice to be able to kind of like stay in touch with them.
Michaela, do you want to touch on that question?
Yes. So my favorite freshman memory was, I don't know, it's kind of just like being able to walk out my dorm and meet so many people. I lived in a hall that was, everyone just like went from floor to floor. And our first night moving in, some people from like the first floor came up and did a room tour of all the rooms. So they would like knock on the door and be like, can we see your room? And so eventually it just became like a big like group of 50 people just like going into your room and then going to the next. And I thought that was pretty fun.
So you've got a ton of questions flowing in, so I'm going to move on to one of their questions. But Caroline, you mentioned you're in a social sorority also. So this person asked, can you talk about your experiences in Greek life and the atmosphere of fraternities and sororities on campus?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so coming from Georgia, I knew big sorority life. Alabama, Ole Miss, UGA, like that's how I pictured a sorority. And I didn't think I was ever going to join one because I just imagined like huge. And then I came to William & Mary, and about 1 in 3 students are involved in Greek life on campus, so it's much smaller than those big Southern schools. And I ended up meeting people just through classes or through other clubs I was in that happened to be in sororities, and they were really wonderful people. And I was like, well, I want to get to know them more and meet other wonderful people like them. So I decided to go as a continuous open bid, which means I didn't actually go through recruitment. I ended up attending events that the sororities held later to have more members join. And that's how I ended up joining my social sorority. So I've heard recruitment's a very stressful experience, but I've only ever done it from the sister side and not the potential new member side. So I have a little bit different of a take on recruitment than I guess some of the other people on this call might have. But I found it to be fairly easy to join a social sorority. And it's been a really, really wonderful experience. I've gotten involved in the philanthropy on campus that my sorority has, domestic violence awareness. And we work with a local shelter for women in Williamsburg, which is really nice. And we're very involved with them. In fact, our philanthropy event is today, Walk a Mile in Their Shoes, where people walk around the sunken garden or walk through Williamsburg to raise money for Avalon, the domestic or the local shelter in Williamsburg. And it's also just it's been a really wonderful experience. I've had some wonderful sisters that I've gotten to meet, and I feel very, very lucky to be in a social sorority. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Jillian, did you go through the typical recruitment process?
Yes, I did. I went through the formal recruitment process in the fall. I went through it as a sophomore, and I definitely was a little nervous being like, wasn't like a typical freshman going through the recruitment process, but I found it like there were also we have a lot of students who go through it who aren't freshmen, which is really great. And there was a large population within my pledge class in the chapter that I ended up joining that weren't freshmen, which was really nice. And I was able to kind of like find my home, as cheesy as that sounds, which was really great. And now, even like a year and a half later, I'm currently the director of new members. So I'm still like actively working with the new member process, and I get to like kind of like be their like introduction to the chapter, which is really great.
Awesome. And I think Caroline mentioned this at the beginning, but about I think 34% of William Mary students are currently members of fraternities and sororities on campus, and that also includes not only social fraternities and sororities, but also honor fraternities, volunteer and service fraternities, as well as multicultural sororities and fraternities. I think that's all of the categories, but I might have missed one, so let me know if I did. And then moving on to a really fun question. Charlotte asked, are there any good boba tea places or sushi restaurants? Absolutely. There's 2 that are walkable for both of those things, and a couple ones that are like 5-minute driving distance. All of them are highly recommendable, and I am fueled off of boba and sushi daily and weekly, so can guarantee that will not be a problem for you in attending William & Mary. And then let's see, Rachel, I think you're off campus now, but could you please tell us about the residence experience at William & Mary in your underclassmen years?
Yeah. So like you said, I live in a apartment off campus now. I live really close to one of those sushi restaurants, and one of the bubble tea places are like 100 yards that way. It's dangerous. But freshman and sophomore year, I lived on campus. So the freshman dorms, they can kind of differ. Some of them are older, some of them are newer. It really just depends where you end up. Mine was called GGV, Green and Gold Village. I was in Griffin B. And that's one of the older ones, but I believe they're actually like being knocked down soon. And yeah, yes, they don't have AC. Yes, the rooms are kind of small, but I think that it gives you a really good like freshman college experience. And that's why I made all of my good friends in like freshman year, because we didn't have AC. We would all hang out in the lounge together and in the basement, because those spaces did have AC. And so we'd hang out there. All the dorms also have like a kitchen or two. They all have laundry somewhere in the building. And then obviously there's some buildings that are newer, and so they might have like a few more amenities and stuff. But I really enjoyed my time living on campus. I kind of miss living on campus, if I'm being honest. Like I feel kind of disconnected now, just because it's so pretty and all the buildings are really nice. So yeah, the freshman dorm experience, it's gonna depend on where you end up, but honestly, in the end, like it's gonna be totally fine.
Yeah, that was a really great recap. I did not know GGB was being torn down, so that's really interesting. And to the couple of people who were sending us messages with questions, if you could drop them in the Q&A box, just we have it all in one place, that'd be really appreciated. Michaela, I think you mentioned you were involved in a couple of different organizations. Rohit asked, it seems everyone's really immersed in various activities, which is really cool. How do you keep up with all of them while balancing an academic life? Did you want to kick us off on starting chatting about that?
Yes, I will. So I actually, in a lot of the organizations that I'm a part of, I have like a leadership role. So like in my social sorority, I'm director of public relations and marketing. And then in student assembly, I'm secretary of outreach. So what I do is in the beginning, I would like write out all my stuff on the calendar, like just basically like if I have a test or something, and all that. And then I also like dedicate my time like during the week. That's my school time. And then like the weekends, I'm not going to do any schoolwork. I'm going to go out and I'm going to like have a fun time. And so each person does things differently. I know people who work on like Saturday, like mornings or like Sunday mornings, but for me, my weekends are like me time. And then also like, I just know how much time each takes. Like if I have to post something on Instagram, I'm like, okay, like this can take this amount of time. I'm sorry, my voice. But yeah, it's really easy to balance, I believe. And also like just knowing how much time you need to study. I think just like reading chapters, like reading your textbook and like going over your notes is all like you really need. But I also have a different like take on life. So that might not be everyone's experience here.
I think that was a really great recap of that. Does anyone else want to jump in on that question? Yeah, I think Michaela really hit it off. The next question is, and actually before that, one of the anonymous attendees asked a question about Caroline's involvement with the Student Episcopal Society, and it seems like she's typing an answer back to them. Is that true, Caroline?
I was, yes, but I
Okay.
can also cover it really quickly. Either works. So, which is, yeah.
If you already started typing it out, since we have a lot of questions, I'll just let you keep doing that. And then the next question is, has anyone studied abroad? If so, what was your experience? I'll just hop in because I've went abroad a number of times. I went for a semester, 2 summers, and a winter program because I loved going abroad in different types of programs. So I had a really great time in half of those programs practicing the language I was studying at William Mary, which is Spanish. So I went to Guatemala and Spain for those experiences, and they were in very different types of locations in terms of like a city versus rural environment. And one was a bigger like third-party program, whereas the other one was a smaller William Mary program led by a professor on campus. And then another one was more in tune with one of my majors, which is international relations. It was in the Middle East in Oman. So it was a very different location from both where I grew up in South Korea and the US, and the other places I went abroad to. So there are a number of different opportunities available for all different types of students based on your interests. And 3 of my 4 programs were also fully funded by scholarships available at William Mary for people of different backgrounds or majors or socioeconomic statuses. And so it's definitely accessible by everyone, I think. There's definitely those financial supports as well as academic advisors that are in place specifically just for people going abroad. And so they really help you fit that into your academic curriculum and program, depending on the major, based on like your circumstances with how many credits you come in with or what you need to hit to graduate with certain requirements. Does anyone else go abroad that wants to hop in?
So I didn't like, I didn't exactly go abroad, but I did the William and Mary DC summer program, the summer institutes there. And I actually did it last summer, which wasn't the best choice with it having to be on Zoom, and I was actually home the entire summer. So I did DC from Atlanta, but it was really, really worth it to me. I got 7 government credits out of it, and we had some really incredible speakers come. We actually had an assistant to now Vice President Harris come to speak to us, who is a graduate, and we also had James Comey, who is a graduate of William and Mary as well. And it was a really, really excellent experience, and I would definitely recommend to anyone to do the DC Summer Institutes.
I haven't been abroad. I was going to this semester because of COVID, but I had started the process and of like applying, and I can say that the Reeve Center is very helpful in helping you apply. So if you want to go abroad, like definitely go meet with them, and like they really like helping people do that. So it's definitely very doable.
Yeah, just to quickly mention, Gail asked, are the dorms single sex by floors or are they co-ed? Rachel answered for us in the chat box. They're separated by gender by floor for most dorms. And then I believe we have one, I think it's called Mosaic dorm. There's some kind of special name to it that's open to anyone of all genders and backgrounds. So there's different options for all different types of people. The next question is, how much time do you spend studying? Jillian, do you want to touch on that for us?
Yeah, I guess when it comes to how much time I spend studying, it definitely depends on the classes I'm taking that semester. Each semester I try to take like 2 like more of like, oh, these are going to be like my harder classes. Like I'm definitely going to have to put in a little bit more time, a little bit more energy. And then I try to take 2 classes or like 3 classes that I don't think are going to be as hard. So I kind of balance myself out. In terms of how much time, I definitely spend like an hour or 2 every day. Like this morning, I did actually go to the library just to like get some stuff done in the morning. But then like I'm hoping later today I can kind of like spend time to just like socialize. So I try to like balance it out, make sure I'm like taking breaks. There are a few weeks when I definitely like kind of lock myself in my room and I'm like, I have to like study for exams. But usually that's just during exam time. That's not like an everyday type thing for me. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think we get a lot of resources on like how to keep your brain healthy and well during those busier exam weeks. So people definitely take like study breaks together, or even when we're at the library, my friends and I take a minute to leave the library for a little bit together, just to go outside and soak in some sun, especially in these pandemic times. There are a few questions that were about like having a car or walking around campus. I wanted to address all at the same time. One person asked, do I need to have a bike or a scooter to get around campus? Those are definitely helpful, but I never had one. Everything's within like a 15 or max 20 minutes walk to like one end of campus to the other. So walking is definitely doable. In terms of cars, underclassmen, so freshmen and sophomores are not allowed to have cars by default, but you are able to get exceptions if you have like an off-campus job or like a medical need to go to appointments or have like a particular family or home situation that requires you to travel often. You can get those exceptions made and park at a designated parking lot for those purposes. And then upperclassmen have residential parking passes, which in theory give you spots near your dorm, but depends on what the availability is that day. And then let me just look real quick to see if there are any other questions that are about transportation.
Can I add in, William? Okay. So as well, there's a lot of spots around campus. Churches will sell spots. There's a parking deck in Colonial Williamsburg that sells spots too. So even if you're a freshman or sophomore who can't necessarily have their car on campus, you can definitely find a spot around campus to have your car without much difficulty. That's what I did my sophomore year. And you can also get your car to be on campus for religious purposes as well. So let's say your place of worship isn't nearby, you can request for the school to let you have a car so that you can attend religious services.
Totally forgot about those options. Thank you, Caroline. And then Connor also asked, do most people live on campus after freshman year? I think starting 1 or 2 years ago, sophomores are also required to live on campus. Since they renovated so many upperclassmen dorms, I think they're trying to cater that to improve those housing options. After sophomore year, I think the majority still live on campus, but there's a good chunk of people that live off campus. I don't have the exact stats for that, but I think those are actually available online somewhere. So I have a good mix of people who do live on campus, others who live off campus, just depending on people's financial needs or environmental needs in terms of spaces. But there's also a lot of housing options like right off campus. Like I'm like 500 feet off campus. And so it really depends on like what you're looking for that are available.
They're also building new apartments that are supposed to open, I think like next season or something. I'm not totally sure, but there's like going to be like 500 units, I think. So there's like these new apartment buildings.
Yeah. Going back to the order. Oh yeah, go ahead, Kayla.
Okay, sorry. Hopping back to like dorms and stuff, I've always lived in a co-ed dorm. So those do exist. And I've always had a suite bathroom. So there's no like worry about like towels and stuff, like walking down the hall. But there are some dorms that it's co-ed, but like boys and girls on the other side. And then the bathrooms are across from each other. So that is an option. And then also like living off campus, a lot of people do it. And especially like if you're in a social sorority, they do have like off-campus houses that you can live in that are pretty nice. So yeah.
Yeah, not only fraternities and sororities. I know a lot of like clubs and orgs have like shared houses that get passed down like within them. I know like the Frisbee team has a house together and things like that. So that's really great. Going back to the next question in our feed, someone asked, how is the Student Athletic Center? I'm guessing they mean the student rec. We tried to look around it, but the facility was closed. I don't go to the on-campus rec as much this year, so I don't know if anyone else has been going more recently in the COVID times, but I can touch on pre-COVID times if no one else goes too often.
I've gone a few times during COVID times. Right now, the way our rec works is like you have to sign up for a time slot, and there's like 150 slots, I think, per time slot. So usually I don't ever have a problem like finding a time that I want to go. And you just sign up and you can go, and you have to wear your mask right now. And like a lot of the machines are like kind of like every other machine is like not in use, obviously, because they want to make sure we're spreading out. But you like can go for an hour and a half, and then for the next 30 minutes, they like clean everything down to make sure that it's like safe for the next group. So it still is like pretty safe, which is really nice. And usually I don't have a problem like finding anything that like I want to use or that like I want to do, which is good.
I'm a fitness instructor, so we have a lot of our classes actually outside at the Matoka Amphitheater. So you get to see like a lake in the background. So that's pretty fun. And I believe like if you're an athlete on campus, like playing D1, you actually work out in the Kaplan Arena. You have like your own separate area. So yeah, you would probably work out with your team, or you could be able to go any time of the day. I believe it's like in the basement of Kaplan.
Yeah, totally forgot you were an instructor. Thank you. So we have a couple of questions about Williamsburg as a town. So I'm just going to read all of them at the same time, and then we can kind of ponder together. So the first question is, do you ever find Williamsburg to be too small of a town? Is it hard to find things to do off campus? And then a second question is, what's your favorite thing to do in or around Williamsburg? It's kind of similar niche question. And then a third question is, do most of the restaurants nearby offer vegetarian food? Do we have any vegetarian people in this webinar? So I was vegetarian for a semester because my friends bet that I couldn't do it, and I did it. There were a lot of options around. I think the people who sometimes have a little bit more of a challenge are people who have very strict dietary restrictions of a certain type or practice veganism. Being vegetarian wasn't too difficult besides just being tempted because I grew up eating meat my entire life. But I don't think there's any issues like with the restaurants nearby and like finding those options.
You brought up severe restrictions, and I have more allergies than most people I know to food. And I can definitely say, even with a peanut, pine nut, seafood, like all fish, all shellfish allergy, I haven't found it very difficult to find food to eat on campus and around in Williamsburg as well. You just have to tell people, and they're very accommodating because Colonial Williamsburg is very touristy. So they have to be accommodating to tourists, and they're willing to be accommodating to me as well. I had a roommate my freshman year who had celiac, so she couldn't eat gluten. And both on campus and off was also very accommodating for her as well. So I would not say that there's a concern if you have dietary restrictions.
Yeah. And then just addressing the part about things to do around campus in Williamsburg or the town potentially feeling too small. Did anyone have any thoughts they wanted to touch on?
I can talk about that because I know when I was applying to colleges initially, I was like, I don't want to go to a college town because in my mind, a college town was like College Station, which is where A&M in Texas is, if any of y'all know about it. And I think it's weird and creepy, but I think Williamsburg is different than how you would think of a lot of other college towns, partly because of the tourism and partly just because it's like very old and it wasn't built as a college town, basically. And I think around campus, there's lots to do. I saw a question someone asked you about like public transportation. There's the Williamsburg bus and trolley system, which is free to all students and takes you to like Target, Newtown Shopping Center, anywhere you need to go. Right next to campus, there's like Dog Street and Merchant Square, which is like all these restaurants and shops. And I spend a lot of time there with my friends, and that bleeds into Colonial Williamsburg. And like we'll walk around Colonial Williamsburg a ton. And like there's lambs there right now that are really cute. So there's lots of things to do within walking distance from campus. And then farther away, there's like lots of hiking trails. There's like the outlets, there's Busch Gardens if you want to do that. So I definitely think that there's more than enough to do, even though it may be a smaller town.
Just to add to that as well, students get a free pass to go to Colonial Williamsburg. So you can enjoy all the stuff that's down in Colonial Williamsburg, the Governor's Palace, the Art Museum, the Capitol. And as well, there are beaches nearby. You can go to Jamestown Beach, College Creek. I'm personally a big fan of Yorktown. I go there a lot and it's absolutely beautiful. You just have to, a car makes it a little bit easier to get to some of these places, but a lot of people are willing to drive anywhere. So it's very easy to get to the beach, to get to like Yorktown or Jamestown if you want to enjoy the history, which I love Yorktown Battlefield. I heavily promote it. But yeah, so there's a lot to do around.
And it seems like you wanted to also add something, Michaela.
I think everyone touched on it. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Going back to the food, just because Caroline mentioned it a minute ago, someone asked, sorry, there's a lot of questions. I've heard some not so great things about the campus food offerings. Can you speak on this, please?
I can speak on it. So my family, like at home, we usually just eat like fast food because like we all worked a lot. And so when I came to campus, I was like, oh my goodness, like a home cooked meal every day. So I was really excited about that. And I think it honestly just depends like what you're in the mood for, because there's like 3 different places to eat. And then we also have like Qdoba, Chick-fil-A, and like Wawa across the street and stuff like that. But for me, like if I want some like Chinese food or something like that, I'll go to like CAF, and that's a hit all the time. never miss. And then like the burgers at Marketplace are pretty good. And then also like in Sadler, it's just always something different. And now recently they have a pasta bar, which is where, you know, you go in and you're like, oh, I want this like type of noodle and I want like chicken or like marinara sauce. And I think it's pretty good. So yeah, you just kind of have to play around and find what you like, and then it would be amazing.
The dining halls
Go ahead,
also
Rachel.
two, yeah. I was gonna two are like all you can eat and like you can go in and get as much food as you want. And then one is like a la carte. So you get in and get like a side, an entree, a dessert, a drink, maybe something else. I don't remember. And then I know that there was a question about like dining plans. I don't know if one of y'all want to talk about that. I can talk about it. I don't care.
I was gonna say we should go ahead and answer that question, so that's perfect.
Okay, yeah, basically, if you live on campus, you're required to have a dining plan, and there's a couple different ones that like differ depending on the grade you're in, but essentially you're gonna get a certain number of swipes and a certain amount of dining dollars. And swipes are what you use whenever you enter a dining hall. So for the two all you can eat, you swipe in and then you get as much food. For the a la carte, that's one swipe, but if you want to get more food, it's just another swipe. And then dining dollars you can use there's like two little markets on campus. You can use them at Chick-fil-A, which is really great. You can use them at Qdoba, you can use them at Cozy. There's some coffee shops on campus, and that's part of your meal plan. And so you've already paid for that essentially. So it's like you're not spending money when you go to those places because it's from your dining plan. And so you can do like more swipes and less dining dollars, or less swipes and more dining dollars.
I can also talk about cooking because I like to make a lot of my own food, and it's really, really easy on campus. All the dorms have a kitchen in them with an oven and a stove and a microwave and a toaster. So it's fairly easy. I do find the ovens to be a little frustrating with how long it takes for them to warm up. So I make a lot of stove, like meals that you can make on the stove. But I am always in the kitchen basically. I'm constantly making dinners that I save for lunch the next day. So cooking's not that hard either if you like love to cook too.
Yeah, those are very thorough answers. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add. Okay. So we had a couple more questions about spending a weekend in Williamsburg, as well as if people generally stay on campus during those weekends. I think like in a normal semester, people usually pretty much stay in Williamsburg until like, we have like a spring break or a fall break or the semester ends. People might go home for like a weekend if they have to run errands or go to doctor's appointments or see family for whatever reason. But typically people pretty much stay in Williamsburg. There's plenty to do. I was also on Rachel's train of I don't want to go to like a rural college town for college. I actually applied to a bunch of city schools and then William and Mary. In the end, William and Mary ended up being the choice because I didn't like how the city schools didn't have like a campus per se usually. And I was a little worried still if there'd be enough things to do in Williamsburg, but I know earlier Rachel, Caroline, both mentioned a lot of things people can do around the town area, as well as nearby like short drives. So people pretty much stay in Williamsburg during the semester. And then Charlotte asked if you have a day off and can you do anything you want? What would your ideal day in Williamsburg look like? Julian, did you want to answer that question?
Sure. I guess depending on the weather, it would kind of depend what I would do. I love going to College Creek if it's nice out. I did that on one of our days off just a few days ago. It's like this little beach-ish thing. It's really nice. I also just like walking around like Colonial Williamsburg with a bunch of my friends, or just like sitting outside. That's usually what I do on my day off. If it's not as nice out, I'll usually like maybe go to like a coffee shop with my friends like near or like on campus, or just kind of like hang out with like my friends that I live with, just like watch a movie or something. But yeah.
I'll also say what I do in my ideal day. So I probably would go down to like Lake Matoka and do yoga because that's like really pretty. And also sometimes they have yoga like paddle boarding. So I would probably do that because, you know, if I get wet, then I can just go dry off. And then after that, I would go to CW and I would grab me a meal at the cheese shop probably, or Oishi, you know, either one. And then I would kind of just like vibe with people and just, you know, do whatever. Sometimes I like skate down Dog Street. So that's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and when there aren't like local things to do, a lot of student groups also have like optional hangouts or like activities going on. I know like sometimes my acapella group will do like extra rehearsals or just hangouts on the weekends. So there's always like honestly too much to do. We have a whole newsletter, I think, called like 6 Feet of Fun during the pandemic. And then in previous times, we have one that still is ongoing called Student Happenings, which is just about happenings around campus. And oftentimes there's just like too much for you to have to look through that to the point where you have to kind of pick and choose based on your availability. So there's always way too much to do, honestly. Um, Charlotte also asked, can students get jobs as CW actors? What other jobs are available for students in the area? There's a lot of jobs on campus actually for both work study and non-work study students. That eligibility just helps those students get priority selection in that process, but there are still plenty of jobs for other students as well. CW does hire a bunch of jobs, but I don't know if anyone here knows about actors in particular.
I can talk a little bit about it because I am a little bit involved in NIAD on campus, which is the National Institute for American History and Democracy. And through that program, you can take classes that are sponsored by NIAD, and you also have to do an internship component in order to receive like a NIAD certification when you graduate. And NIAD really promotes internships in Colonial Williamsburg, but you can also do them other places. I had a friend that did one in Pennsylvania where she dressed up in colonial wear and worked like as a churning butter. I don't have the full description, but churning butter seems to be her main job, was her main job. But yeah, it's really, really easy to get, not really easy, but you can definitely get a job down in Colonial Williamsburg. And there is a campus option or like a dorm that you can actually live in Colonial Williamsburg in a house that they have for students. So two students will apply and you're supposed to be really, really passionate about Colonial Williamsburg because you're going to be involved in the events that people that live in Colonial Williamsburg have to do. So you're like on a homeowners association, I guess, and you have to host events while you live in the house. But it's a really neat experience because only people that work in Colonial Williamsburg are allowed to live in Colonial Williamsburg. So this offers you a really neat opportunity to get to do that. And it is very competitive. So
I was just going to also add in terms of like other off-campus jobs, because I know that was in the question, is that there's tons of options. I started working at a restaurant yesterday, Mellow Mushroom, and it's like right outside of Colonial Williamsburg, the best pizza. If y'all come to Williamsburg, go there, say hi to me. But because it's, again, like there's a lot of tourists and stuff, there's tons of restaurants and shops. And so if you want to find a job off campus, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, so quickly turning the tide a little bit more towards starting their new student journey. Someone asked, do we meet with advisors before course selections? If you're an incoming freshman, there's a peer advising program over the summer, I believe, before a pre-registration course selection, I think in like early to mid-August, where you sign up for your first 6 or 7 credits, which is usually 2 or 3 classes, depending on the number of credits per class. And those peer advisors help you make sure that you're on target, choosing classes that you need to actually get done in that first year of William & Mary. And you also meet a pre-major advisor before you finish registration during orientation. So you'll have orientation aides that help you schedule appointments with those professors that serve as your pre-major advisors to make sure that you're actually hitting all those targets after you've already talked to also peer advisors. And then your orientation aides will help you do the scheduling process during orientation. So people are there for you your entire process of registering for your first semester and going forward after that. And then do students take a freshman seminar class? If so, which ones did you take? Michaela, I know you're closer to your freshman year than I am and some others of us. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so we take classes called a Call 100 and a Call 150. I wasn't supposed to be more writing based, I can't really remember, but my Call 100, I was biology pre-med. So I did something called Phage Lab, and it's just like a regular biology lab, except you get like 4 credits for it. And I spent a lot of my time, I would go outside and I would like get dirt and I'd go back in the lab and like mix it up and like do all that stuff. So that was a good experience for my Call 100. And then my Call 150, I did a class called Queers in Crisis. And that was an American Studies class. And it was really fun. It was cool. Like we read a lot and then we wrote, but like it felt like a discussion-based class, which is something I really love about like William & Mary as a whole, is that a lot of my classes are discussion-based. And your call classes are going to be small. So it's going to be like probably like 10 to 20 students. And it's supposed to be able to get you like out of your box a little bit and they suggest to take it not in your major. So like if you were a business major, you probably wouldn't want to take a business call, because you want to be able to see different things, and you also have to take a certain amount of credits outside of your major. So that's a good way to do both of those things. But there's so many options. If you go onto open course at William and Mary, and just type in like call 100 or call 150, you'll see that there's options in literally every major. So yeah.
On that note, does someone else also want to touch on how, I had a question and then I lost, oh, how easy it is to get the classes you want?
I can talk about that. So government is a really, really popular major at William and Mary, which shouldn't come as a surprise with how close we are to DC. And I can say as a government major, I haven't had too much difficulty getting into the classes I want. There is a class that I tried to get into this semester where I was put on a wait list, and then the professor emailed me on the first day of classes and said I could join. And so that afternoon I was there for the first day and had joined about an hour ago. That's the one Will and I are in together. But I there are some difficulties getting into classes. There are some semesters where you get into every class you want and it's the best feeling in the world. You're on cloud nine all day. And then there are other times when you're registering and you may only get one or two. So it's always good to have backups to the things you really want to take to make sure that you have something else that you might want to take as well. But I will say that the school has really worked to make it easier in these past few semesters than it definitely was my freshman year. So
I'll also add on to that to have backups if you want. I mean, I never usually have backups, but I'll tell you one time I did not get the class I wanted. And then I was just like, okay, I'm going back to bed. And then I woke up at like 3 and I was like, what classes are left? And that's how I get into like some of my favorite classes. So like you don't always have to have a backup, but like it probably is good if you want to take something you like. And then also art classes are pretty hard to get into because they have such a limited amount of students. So that is probably a few that you'd probably want to put on your top of your list. And also if you talk to your advisor, they usually will tell you like, oh, this is gonna be hard to get in, like put that down like first. But your intro level classes usually aren't that hard because everyone's trying to like figure out what they're gonna major in. But once you start getting older and like picking like major classes, it also isn't that hard either because like once you're picking major classes, you're in that major and there's like less amount of students. So I think like you have a pretty good chance.
and your interests narrow down, I would say too. So when you're taking those intro level, everyone's there. But for me, like for government and history, I kind of narrowed it down to I was interested in Soviet and post-Soviet era Russia. So those were the classes I was looking for. And less people are definitely looking for those. What a surprise. But so it was much easier for me once I narrowed it down. Once it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to take all these gov classes to, oh, I'm going to take the Eastern Europe, Russia specific ones. And then less people are doing that.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Julian.
Oh, I was just gonna say, with a lot of the sciences, like the lab classes can be kind of hard to get into, for especially some of like the earlier like freshman level, like intro bio, intro chem type classes. There's usually like I think there was like 12 intro bio lab sections because there's only like 20 people that can fit in the lab at once. So it's always good to have multiple backups for those just because there's such little space in them. But the nice thing is there's so many time slots, you usually can fit like at least like 5 or 6 of them into your schedule. So it's usually not a problem. Just sometimes takes a couple of tries when you're like actually registering to like get into one that's open.
Awesome. I was going to add to someone else's question about declaring a double major. Declaring a major is like a lot less of a process than you think it is, or at least I thought it was when I was going into college. You literally just print out the form, find a professor that you like, that you want them to be your advisor for your major advisor, and ask them if they have availability, because some professors have too many students they're already advising, and that's if they say no because of that, like, you know, it is what it is. But there are always professors that are eager and willing to be your advisor, and you have them sign the form, send it to the registrar's office, and you're declared. And then for a double major, you do the same process twice, and there's no like additional steps just because it's second major. And then you can decide before graduating which one your primary major is. I think is the one that is like written in the bold letters in your diploma. I think that pretty much covers that.
Also, I would just say like if you're going to be a business major, you do have to apply. So keep that in mind. I didn't realize that, but I also wasn't going to be a business major, but you just have to complete your prereqs and then submit an application. And I believe they choose like 150 students each semester. So some students don't get in, but you can also go in as a minor and then switch it to your major. But keep that in mind if you were interested in business.
Yeah, if you're considering an undergraduate business major, we have a separate like school for it. The first time you can apply for that, if you have enough credits at that point, is after your freshman year completes. And then, like Michaela said, you apply and then get accepted into either the minor program or the major program, or get asked to spend a little more time taking other business or non-business classes to gain experience and credits before applying again. And pretty much everyone I know who has interest in business eventually gets in at a later time, by which you'll still be able to finish those requirements for the major or minor, depending on what you're seeking.
I saw another major question related, someone asking if you can declare freshman year. You have to have 39 credits, I believe, to declare, I think, but that counts transfer credits. So if you come in with some credits already, you could end up being able to declare your major freshman year, but you definitely don't have to.
And you're required to declare before you study abroad. And I think it's 60 credits is like the max that you have to declare at that point. So you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to major in anything for like until your senior year. Yeah. You have to make a choice.
And that generally ends up being like end of your sophomore year, I believe. Like most people have declared by then, but then you can change.
Yeah, and I believe it's 54 or like 60 credits is by the time you have to declare by of classes you've taken at William Mary. So if you come in with like 60 credits already, you don't have to declare in the first day. It's just 60 credits worth of classes you've taken on campus or like through William Mary's institution. Kind of transitioning a little more towards roommate experiences and kind of just living in a dorm and all that. Catherine asked, has getting a random roommate been a successful experience for any of you? I didn't go random, so I can't answer that question.
I didn't. It sounds like we all kind of did the same thing where like people meet on like the Facebook group, but I have friends that did go random and they all did have like a good experience of it. So, but yeah, you can like meet people beforehand if you want and like room together that way. You can like put it somehow in the system. I don't remember exactly how, but you'll figure that out. But no, people have good experiences going random.
I also didn't go random. But it was someone from my school that I didn't really know that much. And then we just like saw each other and was like, oh, we're from the same area. Let's live together. And that worked out pretty well. And from my friends that I've watched, like sometimes when you come in with someone you picked, it really doesn't work out just because like you think they're going to be amazing. And then you're like, nope. So I would say go random, because a lot of times when you go random, it's like, what's it called? Love at first sight, when you're just like, or like, what's it called? The blind love, whatever. They end up working out sometimes. So I would say like, go for it, because you can get a really awesome person.
And if you do end up with a terrible roommate situation, I've had friends that have had that happen. It's very easy to get a room switch. You just have to submit a form online, and then they'll email you and tell you where your new room is. And so it's not that hard. So if you end up in like a nightmare, you're not stuck in that nightmare for forever. So I promise.
Yeah.
In terms of, go ahead, Jillian.
I was just gonna say, it wasn't my freshman year, it was my sophomore year. I had like a bad roommate experience. It was with a friend, and we're friends. We just didn't live well together. She's a morning person and I am simply not. So it was not very compatible. But I will say, like, it sounds corny, but like communication is like key when it comes to your roommate. Just making sure like you're really communicating like your boundaries and like kind of like how you live. And like when I did eventually move out, we were still able to be friends. So it didn't like burn that bridge forever for us. And the move out process it was very easy. And like the school worked, like they were really good at working with me. And I was able to like find like a much better situation for myself.
Awesome. Since we don't have too much time remaining, I think we're gonna kind of jump around to the questions that are more about like school, like resources or general experiences. One of the questions was, I need to stop losing questions. It was about, what kind of support is available for neurodiverse students and how easy is it to access those support resources? I identify as one of those students also, but if someone else also does, you can feel free to go ahead and chime in. I guess not. So I identify as a neurodiverse. I have gotten support from the Student Accessibility Services Office, and they give you academic and other accommodations that include like physical accommodations, mental well-being accommodations, depending on like diagnoses, lived experiences, etc. So for example, with my academic experience or accommodations, I get like additional time on examinations and other accommodations that are based on my medical diagnoses. And there's a whole office and support team dedicated to that. They make sure to communicate with your professors, but also give you tips and tools for how to communicate for yourself as well, to kind of help you be an advocate for yourself with an underlying layer of support from an official office. And so it's very accessible and is available to you from day one until the day you graduate. And I just have to renew it every semester, and it's a simple like few series of buttons, and then just emailing professors at the beginning of each semester to be like, hey, this is an accommodation I have. I just wanted to communicate it with you up front. And I've never had a professor, deny that. I think they legally can't, first of all, but they've always been like very flexible and accommodating to make sure that they can fit me in as much as any other student. And it's not some kind of like extra burden that I feel like I'm placing on them. Speeding through some other questions. Let's see. Sorry, there's so many. Is there anything we should bring with us that most people forget to bring to our dorms?
Yes, rain boots are something I had never thought to get, and I will promote them to anyone because when it rains in Williamsburg, it pours and it turns. I knew Williamsburg was built on a swamp, but when it rains, it becomes a swamp. So I will say rain boots are definitely worth it. I've known people who have ruined shoes, people who have gotten horrible blisters. So rain boots, definitely.
I would say, like, especially if you're living in a dorm, just like a fork, a knife, a plate, a bowl, maybe a cup, because like my friends and I would like bake cakes for each other. We do things in the kitchen, and it was something that I was like, well, if I'm eating in the dining hall, I don't need that stuff. But you're gonna end up occasionally needing it. You can get each of those for like $1 at Target or Walmart, so I would invest in those.
Awesome. And then Matthew asked, how safe is Williamsburg? Do you feel comfortable walking around at night? Just had one person quickly answer that question.
Yeah.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
sorry, you
Caroline.
go, Michaela. You.
Okay, I was just gonna say I think it's pretty safe. I personally walk around at night, like late at night, 12, 1 a.m. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, don't do that. But I do. And we have like the blue light system where like I guess if someone was coming after you, you could like run and like tap the light or something. Personally, I would just run. But yeah, it's definitely really safe. There's just like older people out. So like older people aren't usually out around like 1 a.m. And then we do have like campus police that sometimes like I don't know what they do, but yeah, they are there. And then we have the like, if you're like out and like there's someone drunk or something, we have a stair clear program where like you can call them and then they'll like go and get someone. So like you don't really have to worry about people like that. And also a lot of students do leave their doors unlocked, which is like, whatevs, but it is safe because I've been on halls where absolutely no one locked their door. So it's pretty safe, but don't rob us if you're trying to do that.
There's one question about internships, another about graduating or leaving William & Mary. So internships and like externship programs are readily accessible to you to apply to and get recruited into through our career center. There's advisors for each different like industry of majors and potential careers, and a whole website dedicated to employers recruiting directly from William & Mary on campus. And then in terms of moving into life after college, we also have a whole center dedicated to connecting you to scholarships or fellowships or other graduate programs to get you into academic programs if you're hoping to continue in academia instead of going into the workforce directly. And then someone asked, how accessible are professors and how would you describe the relationship most students have with them overall?
Okay, I have a great story about this. I love going to professors' office hours. They relax more than they do in the classroom. It's really easy to talk to. They love to answer questions. And one of my professors, I'm very close with him. He even sat my fish over break because I couldn't bring him home, my fish, not my professor. I couldn't bring my fish home. So he pet sit him over break. And while he was taking care of him, my fish died, which he felt horrible about, emailed me, was going to buy me a new fish. He ended up burying it in his backyard and marking it with a flag. So very, very special. And I would say the professors on campus are some of the most warm and welcoming people. There are a few that you might be like, but for the most part, the professors want to see you succeed. They're passionate about what they're studying. They want to share that passion with you. And if you go to office hours, even just stay after class for a few minutes, you can really create a great relationship. And maybe they'll pass at your fish too. Sorry, Michaela.
No, I was just gonna say really quick that like I recommend going to professor's office hours like no matter what, because like one tip I got freshman year was like it's harder to fill a face you recognize. So I would say like walk up, always turn your cameras on if you're on Zoom, or just be like, hey professor, like I like your shirt or something like that, because I promise you they're gonna have a really hard time giving you an F or like a bad grade if they know you.
Connor asked, is it looking like everything will be back to normal for classes next year / no more online classes? At this time, obviously, no one can really guarantee anything. I think a year ago at this point in time, we also thought the fall would be normal. But with vaccinations rolling out and President Joe Biden making certain promises, I'm hoping the US is back to normal by the fall, and William Mary is planning to hopefully be normal by the fall, but still preparing just in case. Having the infrastructure to fall back on if we have to stay online partially. But I think the general consensus is they're hoping to be normal next semester. And then someone asked, I've heard some not so great things about the general mental health of the students at William Mary. Can you touch on that? Anyone want to touch on that
Yeah.
particularly?
Sorry. Yeah. So when I came to William & Mary, I was very homesick and very afraid. And I went to the counseling center on campus, and they provide some really, really, really great resources. And I would say William & Mary has a stress culture. People like to do well. People like to succeed, and they can get competitive. There is a how long did you study last night? I was up for like blah, 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 blah. But the resources on campus are really improving, and the mental health or the counseling center, it's rather new, so it's very, very nice. And there is a 24/7 hotline that you can call to speak with a counselor. And the mental health on campus is definitely seeing an improvement that it has in past years. And I would definitely say that, well, the mental health, like there is still a stress culture. We are working on that. Students are aware that there is this stress culture, and people are being more supportive than I would say they were in the past. That's just my experience. But
I was just gonna say that like I personally I try not to get involved in the stress culture, which like if you talk to me, you're probably like, oh my God, this girl does not study. Like, how is she passing anything? But I just like I kind of just vibe and do life. But I will say I went to the mental health center one day. They did like a free screening for like depression, anxiety, anything like that. And I went, and then I got in the next day. I don't know if they're like, oh my gosh, this girl needs to get in immediately, but I got in the next day and I had like a good experience. And also, if you cannot get to the health center, a lot of the churches, sometimes they have counseling at the church that isn't related to church at all. It's just free. And it's because like the health center can get like swamped sometimes. There's not that many counselors, but there's off-campus resources, and like you could walk 3 feet off campus and go to a church and get your counseling and do that. So I would say when you come, try not to get into the stress culture, just kind of enjoy life. And yeah.
Yeah, and they've also been pouring a lot of resources to make sure that those resources are accessible. So I know they're doing a lot of more like telehealth appointments, I think is the term they use, for both physical and mental well-being. And then hiring, I think, more counselors. And then for those who feel like on-campus resources aren't the best fit, they also do a lot of, this isn't the right medical terminology, but like outsourcing, like they help you connect to off-campus practitioners to make sure you can get the support you need regardless of wherever it is, based on like your insurance or other circumstance information. They can confidentially connect you to those resources. So we have a couple minutes left for it to log off. What are some popular events that occur during a normal year at William & Mary? Jillian?
Yeah, so I guess some of the bigger events or like the bigger like William and Mary traditions that we have here in the winter, like I think it's like right in the middle of finals, which sounds like an inconvenient time, but it's honestly like really nice. We have this thing that's called Ulog, where like pre-COVID we would all like gather in like the Wren courtyard and someone would read us like a story. I've only been once, so I don't really remember what happens. I think we sang Let It Go from Frozen, which was an interesting experience. But they like light up the wren in like blue and snowflakes, and then everyone gets like a piece of holly and you like throw it into a fire. And they serve cookies. I definitely had like 15 cookies and then I left. But it's like really fun. It's just like a fun thing to do with your friends. Yeah, that's like one really big thing that we do. Like every weekend there's like an a cappella group performing or like an improv group like having a show. And like most of those things are just like free. You can just kind of like walk in or just like show up and like watch people perform, which is really fun. I'm not artsy at all, so I love like when other people are very artsy and I'm getting to watch things like that. There's always like sometimes like in the theater, like within CW, there's like shows being put on from like other women married students, which is really fun. So there's always like things kind of happening like at any moment.
We have to unfortunately wrap things up. I know there are some of you with more questions, and I can, drop my email in the chat also for those of you who asked questions about like my major and involvement specifically. And if anyone else wants to also share their email address, that'd be also great for those who have more questions that are specific to what we mentioned we're involved in or studying. If you have any more questions about the admissions or like deposit submission process, please send an email to this email that I'm putting it in the chat box, and then also go to the link for activating and depositing your account for William & Mary if you choose to attend, which we really encourage you to do. And then for those of you that are doing the virtual campus tour, log on to .zoom in a minute. But here is the email address and the link for further information about admissions events or resources in the coming days. And then I know Rachel included her email address. I'm sending my email address now, and then so did Caroline. And then just to end things last minute, someone asked, what are 3 words you would use to describe William & Mary? We'll just do 1 word each really quick. If Michaela wants to kick us off.
Unique. Oh, Julie, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Supportive. Rachel.
Mine was similar, but I don't have time to think of another one. So like welcoming is what I would say.
Caroline?
Passionate.
And I'll do home. So thank you so much again for coming to this session. Welcome to William & Mary, regardless of whether or not you choose to attend here, and really hope to see you next year on campus. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming. Have a great weekend. Okay, I gotta run to go to a workshop, but it was great talking with y'all. I thought we did a great job, and I hope people come. So have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.
Bye.